If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it.
So the Knicks were shorthanded Wednesday night, but still put on a historic performance in Indiana. The Knicks beat the Pacers 138-129 thanks to big scoring nights from Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, and Obi Toppin. They became the first Knicks trio since 1979 to score 30 points each in the same game. Quickley led all scorers with 39. Grimes poured in 36. Toppin had 31. So the Knicks will go over as much as 14 in the third quarter. This was a game that was kind of a seesaw battle. There were a couple of times when Knicks got double-digit leads, including in the third quarter. Indiana got back into the game, and it was tight into the fourth. About 3/4 of the way through, the Knicks had a big 7-0 run when the game was tied at 120 to help put them ahead for good. Toppin had a pair of dunks. Grimes hit a huge three. And that was essentially curtains for the Indiana Pacers on this evening, where they also were playing with a lot of their younger players, a lot of their star guys out of this one. Mitchell Robinson, who I think kind of went under the radar, I'm sure we'll talk about it, had also maybe one of his best games as a Knick. I mean, he had 14 points in this one, 16 rebounds, and 7 blocks. So not only did you have the lights out scoring from the young guns, Quick, QG, and Obi, but then Mitch also with a monster game as well. For the Pacers, it was Jalen Smith who led the team in scoring 18. TJ McConnell had another good game. I think he had about 17 points. It was a very balanced attack for Indiana, but not enough to overcome the big time scoring that happened from the Knicks young guy. So, Tommy, what does this performance tell you about this Knicks young core?
Tells you a whole lot, EJ. I mean, listen, there was, talk. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Donovan Mitchell over the next couple of weeks as in the lead up to the Knicks Cavs series. And one of the conversations, obviously, during that time, dating back to September and the 6 weeks before the deal was actually consummated, sending him to Cleveland, was what should the Knicks give up? And a lot of national pundits and fans of other teams and even fans of some Knicks teams scoffed at the notion that there was anybody untouchable on the Knicks roster, especially in regards to their young talent. As we know, that wasn't necessarily the case because depending on the reporting you follow, at different junctures in the conversations, essentially each of the players was included in some version of the trade, be it Obi, RJ Barrett was kind of the one consistent, due to, his stature as kind of the more established player. But specifically as it relates to Obi, Quentin Grimes, and Emmanuel Quickley, those three guys, were basically viewed by many, not all, as ancillary pieces in a deal, not worthy to be included as significant parts of a blockbuster trade for a superstar such as Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, nobody was equating them with Donovan Mitchell. Nobody predicted that they would be as good as Donovan Mitchell, even at the highest point of their career. But could they be valuable contributors, good players on a good team? And 7 months down the road, we have some answers here. I shouldn't say we have answers. We have a lot of data to lead us to what could lead, what many would believe as the starting point of players that are developing and certainly have an upward trajectory that would you believe that they can establish themselves as not just rotation regulars, as good NBA players. We've talked a lot about IQ. Another game, another player where he was another game and another instance of him being the best player on the floor. 39 points, 9 assists, 2 turnovers. Granted, there wasn't, this was basically a G League Pacers team. We're not going to read too much into it. But listen, the numbers are the numbers. And Quentin Grimes, who has been incredible these past 7 games, averaging nearly 25 points, slashing 50, 40, 90. I mean, just you can't ask for much more than he's done, playing at such a high level, attacking the basket, looks bigger, stronger than his opponents. And I tweeted about it during the game, and that's because that's what it kind of reminded me of. The Knicks backcourt specifically, they are superior players to the guys that Indiana put out on the floor. And that's not to take anything away from Andrew Nebhart, who's, been one of the, really promising rookies from his class. Great pick by the Pacers. He's a good player. Matherin's a really good rookie. He's going to finish probably second, or in the top three in Rookie of the Year voting. He'll be a first team All NBA guy. Promising young player, taking nothing away from those guys. They are not on the same level as Emmanuel Quickley and Quinn Grimes. To me, it reminded me of the JV practicing against the varsity. Like the JV might have some really good kids up and coming that when the varsity leaves, high school is going to restock, and they'll be, but they just look bigger, stronger, more confident. It just swagger. They just felt like a different level of the different tier of player. And I thought they manifested that, right from the very start through the end of the game. And then in the fourth quarter, they said, okay, we're done playing around here. We're going to take over now. And that's what they did. All that said, we've talked a lot about IQ and Grimes these past few weeks, these past few months, because of how well they played. To me, the guy I think we should spend some time talking about is Obi Toppin. I kind of focused on it in my newsletter today. And my thought process was, there's an alternative universe somewhere. I know you love your movies, EJ.
You love the Marvel universe. Yep. And DC, we're turning around with James Gunn. We'll see how that goes. And
there's an alternate universe somewhere where Obi Toppin is drafted by the Cavs. And instead of Isaac Okoro has made 127 starts in his career. Obi Toppin has made 13. There's 9 players in the 2020 draft class that have made over 100 starts. There's 19 players that have made at least 50 starts. Kenyon Martin Jr. more than 50. Pokulewski over in OKC 67 or something like that. Theo Maladone 59 or something.
Wow.
Again, Obi Toppin has made 13 starts in his career. The right place, right time, not the right place, not the right time. Knicks draft Obi. They don't know Julius Randle's going to emerge as a All NBA second teamer. That first season, Obi arrives in New York, playing for Tom Thibodeau, who's going to play his veteran 39 minutes a game every night. Even when Randle struggled, Tibbs doesn't take him out of the lineup last year. Until the end of the season, Obi gets a crack at starting some games, plays really well. Next season, Randle back on top. Again, another All-NBA campaign. And Obi's forced to sit in the sideline. And then when he comes in and plays his 12 minutes, to stand in the corner. And we never really get the full essence. We never really see what Obi Toppin could become. Over his last 8 starts, dating back to last season, Obi Toppin is averaging 25.2 points on 58% shooting, 4.5 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 3.7 made three-pointers. That's 8 games. Not a big sample size, not a 1 or 2 game sample size. Do we have to take, those numbers? Should we take with a grain of salt the fact that those numbers were played late in the year, last April and this April? Yeah, sure. Do those numbers also indicate that there's a player there with a remarkable skill set, a combination of size and athleticism? Yeah, we got to do that too. So fascinating to think about what Obi could have been somewhere else. Might he become somewhere else if the Knicks trade him this summer, or if he leaves in free agency a year from now? All those kind of fascinating things to talk about. But make no mistake, when Obi's been given the opportunity, the dude has played and played well. So it's I thought last night, I will give everybody their flowers, but I thought it was important to point out that Obi really brought it last night.
I know one thing: any team calling for Obi Toppin on a trade,
yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yep.
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
I mean, the only thing keeping Obi Toppin from being maybe a premier asset in any future trade is Julius Randle. I mean, and maybe Tom Thibodeau, I guess, maybe, because you have the numbers there. When he starts, when he gets real minutes, he produces. And it's not that surprising if you think of the guy the Knicks thought they were getting when they drafted him. This was a guy that was a National Player of the Year. This was a guy that people thought was going to run through the NCAA tournament. And he came into the NBA as a guy, you said, wow, this guy's already an offensive juggernaut. And he comes into the league, he's going to be ready-made, ready to go. And it wasn't.
He was 22 when he came in. He wasn't a 19-year-old.
Older player, exactly.
Reasons that they thought he'd come in and make a big impact.
Yeah, like I remember I did a segment on my New Generation Sports Talk podcast with my brother, Kendall. Actually, I don't think it was that. I think it was a YouTube video. But but we were talking about who are college players that could play in the bubble at that time. And I think the number one guy we had was Obi Toppin. We're like, this guy could play in the bubble right now. That's how good he is. That's how mature he is. So what you're seeing now in what is this now, his third year in the NBA is not surprising. I mean, this is kind of who he was supposed to be, and it's only because of Randall's ascension and Tibbs messing with the minutes, messing with the role is why you don't get this guy more often. I think what it tells me is, number one, what I've been saying for a long time is these are the good old days. Like, the Knicks are in a position now with the young players they have and the assets they have around the team beyond just the young players and the stars, the picks as well. The Knicks are going to be a perennial winner. Like and that maybe that doesn't sound bold, but when you think of what the last 20 years have been, like, that's pretty bold to say.
That's bold. That's bold.
Yeah, but like, to me, like, this is what you have. I mean, you lose your top three guys, arguably, definitely your top three scorers for sure.
Sure.
And you go into the game with the Pacers, that should be, and then it was a close game. It wasn't like they blew up the Pacers.
Right.
But like, that's a game where, like, all right, this is a pick 'em, and the Pacers really might be able to win this one. And not only do you win, but you win leaning on the three young guys going out there having basically career nights. Almost all three of them, IQ was 1 point off of his career high. Like, that's I'm not going to take a lot from the Pacer game. I'm taking a lot from that performance individually from those guys and saying those are premier young talented players. And as long as those guys are around, either the Knicks are going to get a lot of good players for those guys, or those guys are going to be contributing to Knicks winning basketball. So that is a very exciting thing. I think the second thing I take away from this is Toppin. And Toppin is the story, even though I know QG scored more, I know IQ scored more. We know those guys are going to be around. They're not going anywhere unless it's some LeBron James wants to be traded, something like that. Obi is interesting because you watch the way the Knicks play with him in the starting lineup and not Randall. And it's a different style of offense. And Randall's productive. So it's not like, I'm not even going to say they're even more productive per se. But they are, I think, just as productive, and they seem way more free flowing. They seem way more athletic. They get up and down the court. Like Obi, I saw some great clips online. Shout out, I don't remember who did this one, but shout out to all the guys who do a great job cutting clips on Twitter. Like Obi simply just like get the ball and just swinging it quickly. How much that gets guys open looks because Randall will get it and hold it, and that changes things. Like, if there's a world, you have an alternate world where Obi Toppin is on the Cavs, I'm still wondering about this alternate reality where Obi Toppin is still the starting point of power forward of the Knicks and Julius Randle is not here. Now, I don't know what you could get for Julius Randle for a trade. I'm not even suggesting yet that this is the option that they should go with. But you look at Toppin, you know he's going to be cheaper. You know he's younger. You don't have the whatever the temper thing you want to call Randle. I don't want to make it bigger than what it is, but it is something. You don't have any of that. And you have Randall on a relatively movable deal. Like, I wonder at what point do you seriously consider, hey, maybe we can get a lot more for trading Julius Randle, and maybe we pair Randle with RJ and we get like a superstar wing, or trade just Randle and you get a star wing. Instead of trading RJ, or maybe you combine them, or trading Toppin in the deal that, it's kind of like answer. You trade Toppin essentially to make room for maybe this Mavericks draft pick that's not going to be the stretch four come off the bench. I think this is a serious question to have because every time Obi Toppin starts, he looks like a future star. That's what it is. We can talk about when it's happening. We can talk about who it's against, but there's no denying that when he plays like this, he looks like a future star. And the idea that you're talking earlier in the year about should we trade him for Darren Vanderbilt in the first, like that stuff sounds crazy when I watch the way he plays when he starts. And then I think that's something that's the takeaway for me is what do the Knicks do at power forward? I still don't know. The answer is still not definitive to me.
It's a fair point. It's a fascinating topic of conversation. The other thing is the reason, he's talked about for, Jared Vanderbilt and a pick is because when you see him play 12 minutes a night, there's weeks where he doesn't make.
Yeah. He can't do this in playing 12 minutes.
Yes. And so if he did this, could the Knicks win consistently? It's all those are questions that are unanswered, unfortunately. When you think, the Knicks front office and coaching staff would have a better feel of it than anybody else. So, but when Randall's playing at an All NBA level, it's really difficult for him to give him minutes. So there's just so much there. But is 100. You're not doing your due diligence as a front office if you're not at least contemplating what's the net result? What's the greater net result? We trade Randall and we take a step backwards because no matter how well Obi plays, I'd be shocked if he averages 24, 10, and 5 and performs at an All NBA level. Obi's not a good rebounder yet.
Yep.
Obi's not a good defender yet. So it's not like you're taking Randall out of the lineup and putting in some stud, versatile defender in Obi Toppin. But from the body of work we've seen, the games he started, the games where he's played significant minutes, his college, his senior year at college, all those things tell us that he could be a part of a very productive, high-functioning NBA offense. You have to cover for him a little bit defensively. Anyway, so that's the conversation you have. We take a step backwards a little bit. Is it 15% less? Is it 30% less? Is it 3% less? Is it 45%? You take a step back with Obi, but then we add whatever we're bringing in return for Obi. And this new roster, is that better than taking away Obi, losing the piece and the upward and the ceiling that Obi presents? Also an insurance policy, a breaking case of glass, but eventually you're going to have to pay him. So you're going to lose that insurance policy at some point anyway. But if you trade away Obi and you're essentially selling low, I think most people would agree. Somebody else is going to probably reap the rewards of him, of getting him at a discount. These are fascinating questions that the front office would obviously not going to have it now, and they're not going to have it 2 weeks from now, and hopefully they don't have it another month from now because the Knicks just in the second round. But at some point this summer, they really have to sit down and say, do we sell high on Julius Randle or do we sell low on Obi Toppin? And that's a fascinating discussion.
And you know what really accelerates that conversation? As I've talked about, and shout out to Brandon Tierney. I was working on Tiki and Tierney earlier today, and he made a great point. I mean, Randall, you're talking about a reevaluation of his ankle, essentially right before the playoffs. We don't know what that's going to turn out to be. The reevaluation could be he needs another week. He needs another 2 weeks.
Yep.
Like, who's to say Randall doesn't play the first 2 games? Something I posted on Twitter. The Knicks don't go into Cleveland with Obi Toppin in the starting lineup. Obi lights it up. They steal a game in Cleveland. And you come back now 1-1, and now Randall is back in the lineup. Maybe they take 2 games in Cleveland. Maybe Randall doesn't play in New York. What if you sweep them or get in 5 games or beat them in 5 games, and now you have Obi Toppin, who was the guy who was playing during this time? That's a scenario where I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think then the Knicks would seriously. I don't think this has been a conundrum. I don't think the Knicks have taken it very seriously. I don't think they've been serious about trading Obi Toppin. I don't think they've been serious at all about trading Randall at any point or even dealing with the issues he's had from time to time. I think that if that were to happen, and I think that it is on the table just because of Randall's health right now, that will now make that conversation real. And how they swing that, I don't know, but that would be the scenario where you say, okay, this thing that I think a lot of the fans think is a high priority, I think the Knicks would say, okay, now this is also a high priority for us.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and keep in mind that Obi was one of the few Knicks that played well in that Hawks series in the postseason 2 years ago. As a rookie, the one game he played more than 12 minutes, he scored 13 points. And the thing that you like about Obi is is a safe player in the respect that you're not relying on him to take 19, 23 shots a night. He gets his points, where he can get them. Yes, he's developed a 3-pointer, which is something he didn't even have, much to speak of coming into the league. You knew he could dunk. You knew he led the nation in dunks during his final season at Dayton. He's one of the league leaders, one of the leaders in NCAA points in the paint, while at Dayton. So this is a guy that really was a force, kind of as the focal point, as the hub of the Dayton offense. Now he's kind of an ancillary ancillary piece on the Knicks. He'll get at these buckets in transition and get him off cuts. That wasn't the case with Dayton. So yes, just a really, really fascinating. And as you know, the Randall injury really makes it even that much more fascinating to see how the first couple games of the round one series against the Cavs play out. Let's say even if Randall comes back for game one, because he wants to rush back and avoid this conversation if possible. He tweaks his ankle in game one and isn't fully healthy. He comes back and they lose game one. He sits out game two and game three, and Obi plays well. There's just so many different things that could go on that could really make this interesting.
I don't know for a fact, but I would surmise that it would not surprise me. Randall saw that performance in Indiana and got right into that cold tub, got whatever treatment he needed at that moment, because he's like, there's a guy here who, if I'm not out there, he could put up the offensive numbers I can put up. He may not be able to rebound or defend, or when Randall wants to, or dish out assists the way I do, but he could score the ball. We've seen Obi had big games last year. We saw him have a big one in Indiana. So that was great to see. Real quickly before we move on, you feel comfortable about Mitch getting back on track on this one? Like, this was, I thought, I think shout out to Tibbs, because I think he was right when they asked him about the guy scoring 30. He said, I want to first talk about Mitchell Robinson. That was one of his best games. I agree with him.
100%. The crazy thing is the Knicks had those three guys score 30 plus points. The best all-around player in that game was Mitchell Robinson. Second player in Knicks franchise history to grab more than 15 rebounds and block more than 6 shots in the same game. The other guy, as you might guess, is Patrick Ewing, who did it 4 times. But Mitch was as active as I've seen him all season. He just looked like a man-possessed bully ball, taking blocks away from guys, just catching it and passing it. Just had a look of disdain, like, don't bring that in, I'm different, dude. Like, this is me right now. He just played with an extreme confidence. We talked about how he didn't look 100% after he banged his knee a couple weeks ago. He looked fully healthy. And I honestly think it'd be a good idea to sit him these final 2 games. Let him rest, put him in bubble wrap, because we know he's injury prone, and just let him enter the postseason playing as confidently. Because again, circling back to that Atlanta series, Knicks didn't have that. Knicks didn't have, a dominant interior Mitch Robinson, during that Atlanta series. If he can play on par with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley and kind of neutralize those guys a little bit, I mean, it's impossible to overstate his importance. If he can play like he did last night, and that wasn't the first time he's had those type of games, those specific skill set, but he had a lull in the middle of the year here where Hartenstein really kind of eclipsed him in terms of production and importance from the center perspective. But back in December, January, he was playing at a very high level as well. And we know the Knicks are going to score. They actually jumped up ahead of Denver last night in terms of offensive efficiency on the season. They're now top 4 in the NBA, just a scotch behind the Celtics.
I mean, who would have thought that was going to be something you would have saw if you talked about that prior to the season? Like, it's
unbelievable. So we know they're going to score. The question is, can they defend at a really high level? And that's obviously what you're going to need to do against a high-powered Cleveland offense. And the key to that back line, obviously, is Mitchell Robinson, who can cover up all types of mistakes. And even when you have elite defenders on the wing, if you're playing, the trio of IQ, Grimes, and Hart, there's still, when you're playing a guy as good as Donovan Mitchell, with a really good point guard at his side and Darius Garland, there's going to be cracks in that perimeter. They're going to get to the basket. So if you can have an elite shot blocking presence and somebody who can rebound on both ends of the floor in a healthy, motivated, happy, just that Mitchell Robinson, that really changes the dynamic of the series.
Mitchell Robinson will be crucial for the Knicks' chances in the postseason in a couple of weeks. So Knicks win 138-129 over the Pacers. And let's talk about